Repeat after me. Please join me in saying, life is a gift.
Life is a gift.
For which we are grateful.
For which we are grateful.
We gather in community.
We gather in community.
To celebrate the glories and the mysteries.
To celebrate the glories and the mysteries.
Of this great gift.
Of this great gift.
That's great.
I had to laugh at the smoke instead.
Hi, my name is Chris Holton Jablonski, and it is my great joy and my deep honor to serve you as your minister and to welcome you to another wonderful worship service here with First Church. I am so glad that you're here. So glad for the precious gift of your attention and time. This is a very special service because it is the first in a series of services that we're going to be sharing this summer, where we've invited people to share lessons from the pandemic. So we're going to hear from a bunch of folks about things that they've learned in these last year and a half, and there's 2 more coming up in the next many weeks. So this will be a real treat. So grateful for everybody who contributed, and so grateful for all the different ways that we've been learning and growing and stretching and healing and doing so much good work during this complicated time. Just a couple things to lift up before we get going. We have our next online coffee hour today, the 25th, when this video will be posted and coming out at 10 o'clock. There'll be a link in the email that brought you this service, so do please come to that. And then there's going to be 2 more in August, and we're going to be communicating out a whole lot in the next couple weeks, so do please stay tuned. I'll let you know when all of the opening up plans are coming out, and we're really excited to engage you all and sort of share some of the good news about what's coming. So stay tuned. We have a couple more meetings with our COVID task force, but we'll be sharing a bunch out really soon. And as always, if there's any way that I can be of support, don't hesitate to reach out. We're very much around. So I look forward to hearing from you. And now, especially looking forward to this good set of moments stretched out before us. So come, let us worship together.
Hi, I'm Susan Galli. One thing the pandemic reinforced for me is how eager people and communities are to stay connected. Soon after our world closed down in March 2020, My daughters, who are both training to be doctors, told my husband and me that we were in the higher risk category of people over 60, and so needed to be serious about hunkering down and trying to avoid getting COVID. Physically, that was easy for us. We're both retired, weren't assisting with childcare or schooling, and had plenty of room indoors and out to be comfortable. But the prospect of being emotionally isolated was daunting. What ended up happening was very different. People used every mechanism at their disposal to maintain, and in many cases renew and grow, connections. Personally, I've been more involved in church activities than in my prior 32 years as a member, co-chairing the virtual pledge drive and engaging in a multitude of adult RE programs, from poetry and book groups to small group ministry to UU theology to gardening to politics, many of which have fostered their own mini communities that are continuing. Outside of church, I enjoyed many Zoom cocktail hours and walks with friends, as well as small outdoor gatherings in temperatures I previously wouldn't have considered patio weather, while repeating the Swedish mantra, "There's no such thing as bad weather, only bad clothing." I've also become closer to a number of family members, college roommates, and childhood friends through regular text groups, at first born of anxiety and rapid information sharing, and now continuing into the post-pandemic world. I don't think anyone has turned me down when I've suggested a phone call or meeting to catch up. Have I had as many or as varied human interactions as I would have had during a normal time? No, not nearly. But the interactions I had were fun, often unexpected, and deeply sustaining. Remembering to take time to nurture new and old relationships is a good lesson to take forward.
What have I learned during the pandemic? As a supervisor in charge of construction teams that either had a very short break or no work stoppage at all, there wasn't a lot of contemplative time for me. Early homemade t-shirt fabric masks, chasing coveted cleaning supplies all over the state, adapting the company's thermal imaging camera to take people's temperatures because there were no thermometers to be had, and cobbling together COVID safety plans for different job sites became my charge for several months starting in March 2020. At the beginning, we treated every surface and every other person like they were radioactive, but contractual obligations kept us at work. I can now say that despite some scares and close calls, company personnel had 0 incidents of COVID over all those on-site work hours. To pass the non-work time, I made pancakes, dusted off my original Lego collection, binged-watched Tiger King, and made a few adjustments to my mental health regimen. But none of this was really new learning. It was adaptation. So what was truly new, and what did I learn? I struggled with this question until I remembered what I was witnessing a little over a year ago. Thanks to hundreds of protests, the Black Lives Matter movement of 2020 helped me, as a mid-40s cisgender white man, just start to grasp what systemic racism means. I'm starting to notice how I make unconscious assumptions and how I can be better at calling out racism when I see it. During the pandemic, the movement following George Floyd's killing was clearer, more focused, more visible, and closer to home than any that I can remember. The 1960s are before my time, and the LA riots in the 90s were distant, and news coverage dropped focus from racist brutality by white police and instead focused on the race war that was contained to not affect the wealthy white neighborhoods nearby. During 2020, there were so few people out in public at all that the protests and the Black Lives Matter movement were that much more visible. The messages of Black Lives Matter and Say Their Names are clear. The high visibility of the movement made me pay more attention. Admittedly, I felt vulnerable knowing that there was potential violence, unrest, here in a wealthy, largely white neighborhood. But my small pang of vulnerability is nothing compared to the inescapability of racism that no white person will ever know. The Oscar-winning short film, Two Distant Strangers, helps illustrate the inescapability, the trapped feeling that I can only imagine. And the book, How to Be an Anti-Racist, is helping me see through a different lens. I want to do more. The news of one black person after another being killed in senseless racist acts continue to surface. The anti-racist movement that I learned more about during the pandemic needs to live on and motivate change. Now that the pandemic is over and the streets are far from empty.
This is the time in our service where we invite forward an offering to help support the good work of the church, both within and so very far beyond these walls. This month, all month, our online offerings will be shared with our partner church program, helping to support our long and thriving partnership with our Transylvanian church in Deshvalva. So please do give generously, and you can text the word offering to 617-819-8168. We are so deeply grateful for all you're about to give.
I trust the movement, I negate the chaos, uplift the negative. I'll show up at the table again and again and again. I'll close my mouth and learn to listen. Whoa, whoa, oh, oh. Whoa, whoa, oh, oh. Whoa, whoa, oh, oh. Whoa, whoa, oh, oh. Whoa, whoa. Whoa, whoa, oh. These times are poignant, the winds have shifted. It's all we can do to stay uplifted. Pipelines through backyards, wolves howling out front. Yeah, I've got my crew, but truth is what I want. Realigned and on point, power to the peaceful, praise to the waters. Women at the center, all vessels open to give and receive. Let's see the system brought down to its knees. Whoa, whoa, oh, oh. Whoa, whoa, oh, oh. Whoa, whoa, oh, oh. Ooh, 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 whoa, whoa, oh, oh. Whoa, whoa, oh, oh. Whoa, whoa. I'm made of thunder, I'm made of lightning, I'm made of dirt, yeah, made of the fine things. My father taught me that I'm a speck of dust, and this world was made for me, so let's go and try our luck. I've got my roots down, 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 down deep. I've got my roots down, 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 down deep. I've got my roots down, down, down deep. I've got my roots down, down, down deep. What are we doing here? What has been done? What are we gonna do about it when the world comes undone? My voice feels tiny, and I'm sure yours does yours. Put us all together, we come mighty roar. trust the movement, I negate the chaos, uplift the negative. I'll show up at the table again and again and again. I'll close my mouth and learn to listen.
Hello, my name is Joelle TePaske, and this is my lesson from the pandemic. This past year, I experienced the joy of formally joining First Church as a member after growing up here as a youth. I also began divinity school at Harvard Divinity in an all-virtual format. This means, like many of us, I was hopping from one Zoom room to another, learning and worshiping in rooms full of folks, often many miles from where I currently sit in Brooklyn, New York. I've always been fascinated by the world behind the screen. I love art that incorporates the internet, technology, and futuristic designs and concepts. I like science fiction, robots, and cyborgs. One might think for this reason, a year of Zoom-infused learning and worship may have served me well. Well, as it turns out, I'm an imperfect cyborg. Like so many others, my wonder at unexpected moments of connection was tempered by moments of human frustration and fatigue. But I still do believe that there can be magic and creativity fostered in digital worlds. For me, in the depths of the pandemic, there was one that stood out among all others, and that was Roller Coaster Tycoon. Roller Coaster Tycoon is a construction and management simulation game focused on amusement parks. I grew up playing it and then remembered and downloaded it on a whim in spring 2020. The premise of the game is simple. You start off with a virtual plot of land or theme park in need of improvement and try to create the right circumstances to make guests happy, make a little money, and create a fun environment in the process, usually with a timed goal for completion. So what began as a trip down memory lane became a fully fledged practice that carried me through quarantine. At first, I was amused by my newly discovered interest in a Sims-type game that I used to play as a tween. Was it nostalgia that made me feel at peace while playing? But over time, I found myself continuing to play different scenarios far after the game aspects of doing X by Y time were completed. I was hanging out in Bumbly Bazaar, Funtopia, or Paradise Pier far beyond the time markers, adding in landscaping, hot dog stands, or merry-go-rounds just for the pure thrill of it. Or if thrill is not the right word, the peace of it. Eventually, I realized that Roller Coaster Tycoon, like a creative or spiritual practice, was channeling a space for me for world building. My phone screen, often a source of stress, overwhelming news updates, notifications, and emails, became the wardrobe to my little Narnia. Compared to other incredibly developed, hyper-real worlds available to gamers nowadays, my choice was definitely awkward, pixelated, and often clunky. But as I watched the chairlift I built swing gleefully over a roller coaster just cresting its top loop, seeing pixelated little humans whoop and holler after snaking down below ground and up again, I felt such a quality of presence, of creating, dreaming, and play, all encapsulated by a 6-inch screen. It is this presence of visiting and building another world that I will take with me far beyond the pandemic. Thank you.
Many years ago, when I was living in San Francisco, I briefly dated a Zen Buddhist, and to impress him, I agreed to go to Green Gulch, which is just over the Golden Gate Bridge from the city up in Marin, to do a crack of dawn sit, which would involve committing to one posture for an hour, sit facing the wall, eyes open, slightly open. I had had no training in this kind of meditation or any kind of meditation really. It was excruciating. But one thing happened that has stuck with me for these past 20 years. Muir Beach is just on the other side of the property from Green Gulch, and I could hear the ocean waves crashing on the beach from where I was sitting. And to this day, whenever I'm consciously breathing, I hear the Pacific Ocean. What I learned from the pandemic, I can sum up in 3 words. I can breathe. I have not been intubated, put in a sci-fi hospital, alone, terrified, gasping for air. I have not had anyone's knee on my neck for 9 minutes and 29 seconds, or any part of that. I can breathe easy, except for a few scary early days with supermarket shelves a bit barren. There's never been any question of my accessing the food I want, let alone the food I need. I did not have to leave home. I was never pressed in tight with workers in tomato fields or a meat packing plant or a warehouse, or going to work in a restaurant and having a mask refuser scream in my face. Since I can breathe and breathe easy, the question this year has been, how do I wish to live? This summer on a farm in Tuscany, I helped with the potatoes and the tomatoes. I had bees humming around me, swallows above me. I was eager to learn simple tasks and use my hands and watch the bees work and be outside. In short, I found this year that I want the quiet. I want to live large pockets of my life either alone or with other species. I long for the sound and speed of the natural world. Before the pandemic, and even more so now, I can tolerate an occasional madding crowd, but in general prefer to be far from it. I'm also questioning all the options we seem to have, some of us, for not only where and how to live, but who to be. I just find it a smidge paralyzing. Maybe I am what I am, and if so, then the Buddhist belief is that my path is to writhe in the forced hold stillness of facing and befriending that creature. More than anything, though, I have learned that my body breathing, my limbs working, my sleep peaceful, my freedoms all but assured, is wealth immeasurable. I am not being chased down either by a virus or a cop to have my breath taken away from me. Given where I live, how I look, the odds are stacked for me. A body working, a life unthreatened. These are my twin towers of gratitude. And my heart breaks seeing how many other towers are falling.
We close our time together today with a very special benediction. We are so grateful for all that has been stirred up within us, each and every one of us through this time. So grateful for the seeds planted, for the courage found, for these connections which hold us now and always. And we realized for a benediction to the benediction that my son, Ben, wanted to share one final learning from the pandemic. So the benediction's Ben addiction.
Right. So, my dad asked me what have you learned from this pandemic? And I guess just like what a pandemic even is.